That's sharp for another hour.
She is, good knowledge.
I wish. If I have my way, this is the time. Appreciate y'all showing up an hour early for this. This is a amendment of Article 5 of our zoning resolutions, probably the first time I know of, possibly since 1971, this thing has been amended to this extreme. Article 5 addresses basically it's our zoning districts, land use, allowable land use, lot sizes, setbacks, all those things that pertain to that. In this, as we go through this, we've added a new agricultural A3 district. A1 goes, per this document, to 5 acres. A2 would go to 2.5 acres. The new A3 would be a 1 acre minimum lot. This adds an R2 district, is which we would be placing duplexes, multifamily developments, so townhouses, apartments, condo developments, things of that nature will be placed in that district. Along with also what we had under the R1 was a cluster option for development that will be placed in that district also. This also creates a new, what we call community facilities district. These are the things that are unique. They don't really have a specific zoning. So in this, as you'll see, that's where you might have people looking to do mining operations, sanitary landfills, even churches, public recreational facilities, things that you might see throughout all the districts of the county in different areas. Some of those things require certain natural resources and things of that to be available. So they were special exceptions. We created a zoning district for this. Towers, it takes towers, we're going to refer to it as a district. The intent for that is when you come in for a tower, it's not an overlay on the property, specific zoning for that leased area. The thought behind that was to keep having 200 acres rezoned with a T1 overlay and then having multiple towers. This place that we are approving that leased area. And then obviously it cleans up a lot of administrative stuff. It puts in some of the changes that's been done over the years. And even add some of those to it. So real quick, what I'll try to do is just go through the gist of how this thing is and then answer any questions and discussion. So as I stated, the A1, it goes from currently it's a 1 acre minimum lot size. It will take that to a 5 acre minimum lot size. It also changed setbacks. I believe the new setbacks were, I'm going to get to it real quick. So you got a 5 acre minimum lot size, you've got a front setback of 50 feet, a rear yard setback of 50 feet, and a side yard setback of 30 feet for 1 story, 5 feet for each additional story. That's the size, acreage size, the lot width didn't change, it's acreage size and setback changed. The other thing we have done in all our zoning districts is the Board of Zoning Appeals hears a lot of calls about accessory buildings in the front yard. What we have done in all our districts, the A1, A2, A3, and R1, is we stated accessory buildings are 5 feet off the side or 5 feet off the rear property line. But if you have an acre of property or greater, that accessory building can sit within the front of the setback, the front of the home, as long as it meets the setback for the principal structure, whatever that is. So instead of everybody come to us to talk about, you know, garages, detached garages, even if you have a carport you want to put over your parking area, you can't do that unless it's connected. Or if I want to have a garage where I pull in front of my house, but I want to go left to go into my garage right here off my driveway, we can't do that the way the standard is. This will say now, if you've got an acre, you can put it in that front yard as long as you meet the principal building setbacks. It's not going to be 5 feet outside, it'll be that principal. A2 is the same as far as accessory. A2 goes to a 2.5 acre minimum lot size. The setbacks for the A2 were also changed, where the front would be 40 feet, which it already was. The rear is 30 feet. Make sure I'm under A2. Side would be 30 feet for a single story, plus 5 feet for each additional story. So the only setback change there is on the side yard. The current reg for A1 and A2 was 20 feet for a single story, plus 5 feet for each additional story. Some of the thought of this is if we're going to create larger tracks, more open space, we have more room to set back our buildings off of those side and rear property lines. A3, that's the new zoning district. A3 is going to be a 1 acre minimum. You're going to have setbacks of 30 feet on the front, 30 feet on the rear, and 20 on the side, plus 5 feet for each additional story as far as setbacks. It's for an A zone, it's a little less restricted on the front setback. And the rear setback would be the same as our current A2, so it does give a little more flexibility there. The R1, not a lot of changes other than taking cluster options. All these districts have had duplexes taken out of them and placed in this R2 zoning. As far as the acreage for the R1, currently for a single family dwelling, it is 20,000 square feet. That is going to actually be a true half acre, which is like 21,780 square feet. A little bit of change, and I'll go through my thoughts as this, how this affects everything. Then of course the R2, we discussed what that'll do. The M1, I don't know of a whole lot of significant changes for that. C2, most everything in the C1, C2, M1 as far as lot sizes, things of that nature remain the same. Same with the O1, the RE overlay. We've discussed what occurs with the P1. That kindly describes the lot sizes, the setback changes. So now we get into the uses permitted. Uses permitted dramatically changed in all the zoning districts, okay? What we used to have is permitted uses in each zoning, then you had your special exceptions for each one of them. And like even the A2, I think there may have been doctor's offices and all this thing. If this thing, again, I've only been with Loudon for 18 years, but I would imagine when this thing was created, some of these uses may have been more necessary prior to the cities developing as they were. I don't know at this point in time if Loudon County needs a special exception for doctor's offices and things of that nature in the A zones. We still yet have a C2 zoning, or a C1 zoning district, which is a rural center district, that if we have some communities that might need, you know, when I think of this, the farthest one I can think out is it Blue Springs or Erie? There's a store out there, right? So there are still some outreached areas that may need some C1 zoning, and we still have that in place. But I think it is better suited, rather than have a bunch of special exceptions that aren't suitable for the district, to put them in the appropriate zoning district, which for medical office, all those things, those commercial tap activities, they are in the C2 zone. And I just thought that was suited better. So out of all the zoning, those are major changes. All your duplexes are gone. They're in the R2 zone. Most of your commercial uses have been placed in the C2 zoning district. Let's see. You still have very minor special exception type items that the board would hear throughout the zonings, but most of it all, in my opinion, has been placed in appropriate zoning district. The only other lot size change is with our cluster option. There is a percentage when you start running calculations for development. It talked about taking 20% of the overall area, and then you start breaking down your density based off that. It was recommended to take that from 20 to 25%. when you do that, it may be that someone just decides not to use a cluster option development, they just go with what the zoning district has. The R2 is the same half-acre minimum lot size, but the R2 zoning is gonna be necessary for public water and sewer connection, which we all agree duplexes needed to have sewer connection. That's the way it is. What are the challenges in that? I think as everybody will probably recognize, what I would see as the biggest challenge is the increased lot sizes in the A1 and the A2. I don't see that. The R1 is minor. You might have some lots affected when you talk about, well, it's just a couple thousand feet. A couple thousand feet can be the difference in them being able to subdivide. But the A1 and the A2 are the biggest. It'll affect subdividing for people. Then you have to look at the thought is, well, they can rezone to A1 or A3 and go back to 1 acre. But then you have to think, if we're going through this to create larger areas, where are you gonna want to go back to the A3 to allow 1 acre lots in this district? You probably run into some issues with pre-existing. So everything now, if this were passed, then everything that's A1 and A2 would kind of be, could possibly non-conforming. I might have a building that was built off of this setback regulation, and now it's affecting me on an addition or something of that nature. I don't foresee a lot of that, but there could be some of that. That could be some of the holdbacks. I think the good things is we put things in the correct zoning district. We created this area for special uses that will allow better control over it. For some reason, rock quarries have become a hot topic in our office, and other things for that matter. Churches sometimes can be, schools can be. And then we've also, one thing we have done is cleaned up this regulation. There was a lot of stuff missing, there was a lot of stuff hodgepodge. It is very uniform. One thing we try to do, and y'all don't have the most update, there's been some minor, what I would call clerical corrections, there's been some typos, there's been some underlining. We tried at this point to make everything sound uniform. So if you notice in even the A1, it now says mobile homes, where before it didn't say mobile homes. And so if you were to read that, technically just say, no, you can't have a single wide in the A1. Right? So now we specifically named those type of uses specifically using error definitions to make sure it is spelled out and uniform throughout the zoning. I think A1 and A2 are your biggest changes, and maybe a challenge as we move forward. I'll be open to any comments and thoughts at this point. I do have it on our planning commission to vote on it, to send recommendation to the county commission for the workshop.
What was the thought process in making A1 and A2 minimum lot size different between the 5 and the 2.5? What was that thought process?
And I thought about that too.
Me?
That was your suggestion.
No, it wasn't.
At one of our earlier meetings, we were talking about two.
I
and
said
one.
both of them 2.5, not just one or the other. I would have said both of them 2.5 minimum. If I had said that, which I'm not saying I didn't, but I would have said 2.5 for both of them.
I can't answer that other than that. I don't know really. It was just having 3 different options.
Yeah, I mean, right now, A1 and A2 are the same acreage. They have different setback requirements. They have different lot width requirements. A1 is 150-foot minimum lot width, A2 is 100. And those stay the same, but it does create 3 distinctive land size zoning, obviously.
So, and what is the criteria for us to zone a property to A3?
That is the one thing that I don't know fully how that will be addressed. Again, I think it's looking at everybody looks for a way to keep, development from creeping in or sprawling out. Looking at how to maintain and control some more open rural space. The only way I know of effectively you do that is by creating zoning districts for larger lots that keep it that way. So the question comes in, when are we gonna do A1 then, or A3? It'll take me a while to get over that. So-
I think it'll come just like anything else, and this question's been posed to several of us during this course of this 6-month process. What if, grandpa has 50 acres and he wants to give grandson an acre? They would come and ask to have an acre, he'd have to divide it off, have an acre rezoned to A3, yes, A3. And though it would come through the regular rezoning process, just like anything else would.
But how do we determine that that's acceptable to rezone that to A3?
What would be unacceptable?
I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah.
I think you would just be facing it with any type of a zone. I don't know that anything would be unacceptable. If they wanted to do a 1 acre or a 5 acre or a 2 acre.
Okay, are you gonna rezone just that 1 acre to A3?
Sure.
Or are you gonna rezone the whole farm to A3?
They could request either, I guess.
I
Whatever
think,
they wanted to do.
and in thinking that, just for what it's worth, I think sometimes in rezonings, when you have a large tract of ground, they don't want the whole tract rezoned. I guess anybody could request a whole tract to be rezoned, but we have typically in commercial, where they only want a portion, and for what it's worth, the 411 project for Mr. Hyde, he had a 40-acre tract. He actually conducted a survey that said, I want X acres of this rezoned to that. So that's a possibility that they would survey out or indicate to the planning commission, we're looking to rezone 2 acres of this 40-acre farm to A3 so we can meet the minimum lot size and have the approved subdivision in order to do this with it.
Well, what if they have 1,000 acres and they wanna rezone it all to A3? What's gonna stop us from letting them do that?
I think you could.
Well, then you've defeated your whole purpose here.
I think it'd be conditional, each one that came up, you would look at. The big thing for us, what this does, it allows community involvement. The community can now object to something coming to their community. The county commission can make a decision based on community opposition, and it stands legally, as we learned in the John Cook lawsuit. So what it does is it gives the community a lot more input into this sort of a process. I think we'll see a lot of requests to rezone. If it's an area appropriate, it'd be like any rezone that came before you all and then before us. Does it fit that area? Down in Brian's area down there, I know Gary's been real interested in all this that we've been working on. They have the most rural area probably of anybody. How does this impact them? It protects large areas, but yet it still allows it to be used as agricultural, 1 acre lots, 2.5, 5, even R1 you could get out in the rural areas like that. But it would have to come before you all and then before us for a decision to be made. Is it appropriate for this particular area? So I think it's like every other rezone that comes before this body, it's going to have to be, you look at it and say, is this appropriate for that area?
But are we gonna say, no, we can't do that, it's spot zone?
Yeah.
No, A to A to A to A to R is not a spot zone. Commercial, industrial, that's when you get into spot zone. As we've kind of hashed that part out too with ETDD and others to what is a spot zone. That's when you markedly change what the activity in the community is. A1, A2, A3, even R, all meshes together fine. Industrial, community facilities could even be considered, I guess, a spot in the middle of agricultural maybe.
Yeah, it would be.
When you have a drastic change from what you have all the way around you.
So I do have one question on Ms. Pam's comments. I got a lot of other questions and comments, but related to this, if you look under the C2 zone, agriculture-related sales are a permitted use in C2.
Yes.
But if that's for an A1, A2, A3, that spot zone would have to be denied for the request. So you've got agriculture sales under the C2 permitted use, but it may be requested for by somebody that lives in A1, A2 district.
Well, they could also now request community facilities.
Yeah, but you're gonna have an individual that got 200 acres, 1,000 acres that may be asking, can I sell that agriculture-related product on my farm? Well, under the new guideline, it's gonna change Williams here to a C2 zone, but he's in an A1, A2.
You can still do it in A1, A2, and A3 also.
I don't think that in that specific.
So my
circumstance.
next comment takes, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Pam, but that's where some of my comments come, is when I read through here, is the true fine print, and can that comment be misunderstood or misconstrued upon the request? So my definition of what would agriculture-related sales in a C2 zone truly define? I could incorporate that would be A1, A2, but where does it say, if we're gonna rezone this, what's the true definition of some of these items in these lines? My other one, let me turn it back over to her, because I'm
No,
sure
I'm
she-
fine,
one of the biggest comments that I have is the term prefabricated dwelling. But under the next one, if you look two more down, it says mobile homes, which, and here's why I go with that. If we leave that loose of a term in there, there's gonna be somebody come to that podium and contest it. Well, no, that's not mobile homes or double wides or modular homes, because it's under number 10, but if under 7 here, that tells me I could have maybe a tiny home.
Shed.
Now, I know that we have certain requirements as far as the size requirement for that, but my concern is, are we opening ourselves up for somebody trying to argue with us, an attorney, some kind of legal aspect? Are we gonna open ourselves up by rewriting this and leaving some vague terms in here?
Let me say this, we didn't add that or change that. That was already in Article 5 to begin with. What I think Jim's fixing to define it for you right here in a second. That's not anything new to this Article 5. That was in the old Article 5 also.
Some things, when I was talking about it, cleaned up some stuff. When I've looked through this zoning before, I was like, right here, we address this specifically, over here, we don't. There was different terminology used. Some places in the R1, it said duplex, but in the A1 and A2, it said 1 and 2 family dwellings. 2 family dwellings is a duplex. So we cleaned up the terminology. So that specific prefabricated dwelling actually come up in a conversation, and there's a definition for it. So that defines exactly what that is, and that's why it was put in there.
Which,
Because it
if
is
you
in
don't
our
mind, just
definition.
for my education, what does the definition of prefab dwelling cover?
Sure. So a prefabricated dwelling means a single detached dwelling constructed primarily off-site, designed to be transported on a flatbed truck or trailer, provided that it is installed on a permanent enclosed concrete or masonry foundation with water and sewer connections, designed for permanent connection to municipal or on-site systems, and permanently connected to such systems. Such structures are distinguished from mobile homes as described elsewhere in this resolution when they have a minimum gross floor area of 600 square feet and having no horizontal exterior dimension of less than 15 feet, not including porches or carports. When such a structure meets the above stated requirements, it shall qualify as a detached dwelling.
That's all existing. We
What's the
had,
difference in that and a mobile home? I know you mentioned mobile home in there, but what's the difference? Tell
A
me
lot
the
of
difference.
terminology's changed in dwellings, so you now have, we don't call mobile homes trailers anymore. We call them manufactured homes. We call single wides mobile homes. We call double wide, triple wide manufactured homes. And then we have modular homes. And a modular home probably fits bestly under this prefabricated.
Well, what you just read there,
Prefabricated
Jim, what you just read there, if I had a single wide trailer and I hooked it up like you just described, what's the difference?
May not be a lot, except for
There's not
construction. It's just definition of coverage.
I know
It's
it,
in
but it's
there. It
just,
may be
it's like Leon said.
I
you
worry
got
about
somebody-
from your standpoint, if I was in your shoes,
Mhm.
I worry about that language being vague enough to where I would have trouble to enforce it. And then somebody that wanted to pull the legal aspect with us wanted to come here and say, was free manufactured off-site, has 600 square feet, but does it meet the building code that Jenkins would go out and hold a builder accountable to? I just worry about, do you think that, just that one line, and I've got a bunch of them, does that one line make you question how you're going to enforce it in 10 years?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I don't see it at this time, but
Okay.
I'm
Ms.
still
Pam,
learning,
I
I'll be honest.
apologize for bothering you.
Can I answer your
Absolutely.
agricultural scenario? In an agricultural, if Mr. Bright wants to run a farm and milk his cows and sell his products off that farm, he can also. I think when we look at the C2 agriculture-related sales, sometimes all the definitions may not be in this, and I'm not sure, I've not looked for that, but in my opinion, that could be more like a nursery-type products, and mayos, things of that nature.
Or machinery.
Yeah, or even machinery and things of that nature, to where you're not gonna allow them to go out into the A1 and build a gigantic warehouse and start to sell machinery. So that's just the way I interpret it, a little bit different.
I just worry about, and we've all, everybody in this room has witnessed, I worry about somebody coming before the commission in future years, whether I'm here or not, and trying to use that language that it's not truly defined against us or against the codes office to try to slide something in that wasn't the original intention.
Right.
In this process, we haven't even taken the definition, like stuff you're talking about, up. That wasn't part of Article 5. I think definitions
And
are
I will
Article
say,
2.
there might be.
But you can agree,
There may be
if-
things in definitions that need to be updated also.
If we put it in Article 5, we need to make sure that another part of the section don't contradict us, because somebody's gonna notice that. I mean, we've got some pretty smart developers, builders, and farmers out here
Well, it
that's
was
gonna call our
recommended.
hand to some of that language.
Yeah, and it was recommended for what it's worth. You know, the whole thought when we started this was we were gonna send this to ETAD to do a full comprehensive overview of this thing. We are just now working on Article 5, and there's been a lot of work put on Article 5. Everything in this zoning relates to another section of zoning, as you're saying, and every part of that zoning needs to be updated. Article 7 is the most updated. But it's come to the point, you know, of saying if we're gonna make any progress at all, we're gonna have to break down probably within ourselves and do some more of this work to get it handled and done. And that's why we're only looking at Article 5.
And I'm 100% in favor of doing that. We needed it a long time ago.
Yeah,
Miss-
it's just not progressing very well.
Ms. Pam, won't you finish up and I'll.
Well, I was just gonna talk a little bit more about the A3.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, it's a very gray area right now.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking of the county and the planning commission.
Mhm.
Are we opening ourselves up for lawsuits? You know, we've got to have the criteria as to what we're gonna allow for A3. You know, do they have to have water? Do they have to have
It's all in
sewer?
there. It's all in there.
Not for A3, it's not, there's nothing in here that tells us what we can rezone for a A3.
I think it says about water, you don't have to have public sewer, but you've got to have water, or you've got to have acreage for well water, if I remember some of that right, Jim.
I don't know that it requires, I don't know that it specifically requires.
Or are we gonna do it,
Spell
are we
that.
gonna do it based on, the size of the property? You know, are we gonna say, if you've got 25 acres or more, you can do, you know, we'll let you do this, or if you've got 25 acres or less. I think we just need to set the standard and the criteria that we want to use for people to be able to know that they can rezone to A3. That's just my feeling. I think it's a little bit gray.
Yeah, so if we had to deny somebody, what
Yes,
grounds
we've
we
got
have
something to stand
say
on.
to deny them, you know, if it doesn't fit, if you're gonna be the only 1 acre, you know, out there, I mean, like, I can see a lot of places where there are, like, there's a row of 1 acres already, and I think, well, that's, you know, that looks, you know, if somebody wanted to cut off a place there, that'd be perfect for, you know, perfectly
Right.
fits in there, but if we have a large tract next to large tracts, and we have the scenario, I mean, that's exactly the scenario I think of, is like, you know, I wanna give my grandkid or my nephew or whatever an acre, but now I have to give 5, and maybe, you know, maybe you don't wanna give 5, and so how do we parse that, you know, and deny it if we, you know, if it doesn't fit without it coming back on us. I mean, I'm not saying that we can't, that's not unachievable, I'm just curious.
I just never anticipated a, scenario, very many scenarios where, in like you're talking about, when you would. I don't know that we wanna tell anybody you got 100 acres. sorry, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I think I think it's always gonna have to, it's a case by case by case. I don't believe you can put just a blanket over all of it and say they all fit in this. That's kind of why we have this option to come before the board to have rezones or whatever there are. I think more in the 4th district than I do anywhere. We've still got some pretty big tracks up in my district, but the
Well, there's a
4th
lot in first district too.
there are some more 1st and 4th, and the 3rd's got some big tracks.
And here's my fear, people don't know about this. We're sneaking it in on them.
Well, there's no sneaking.
Well, there's no sneaking,
No, there's no
but it's not
sneaking.
been publicized, and the people that this affects, they don't know anything about it.
You know, one of the scenarios that I could see is a farmer has 17 acres. He wants to give a child or a sibling, a mother, whatever, some of that parcel, but he don't want to knock himself out of the greenbelt. But that's going to mean he's going to have to deed off 2 acres and keep the 15 to stay in the tax bracket of the greenbelt. But under this regulation, it's going to say, well, we're going to change those 2 acres to residential, R1, R2, R3, whatever you want to change it to. So we're automatically going to take that entire area of agriculture purpose, A1, A2, out, and we're going to make him go to R1, R2 just because it's under the 5-acre tract. And I can
I
see,
don't understand that one at all. I'm a little missed on that.
He could-
He's gotta have 15 acres to be ag. That's not
Right.
our.
Technically,
it's the property he's trying to hand to his child though,
He
Yeah,
can do his A
Yeah,
three.
do it A3. He'd
yeah, A3.
rezone that to A3.
for a 1 acre.
Yeah.
Okay.
and I understand what you're saying, where are we gonna allow A3, what's the criteria, I
Yeah.
get that. And some jurisdictions use land use maps. And I mentioned we have a land use map, but then again, what we have is back there, of course, I understand it's very old. It's just something when you look at it and say, if we want large tract rural, this is where it needs to happen. It still doesn't, but that still doesn't solve the situation you're talking about. If I say, you know what, in this area, the 4th district, the Long Erie Road, they need to be 5-acre tracts, it's still not going to help the guy that has 9 acres. He's still, he still can't subdivide, so I don't know exactly how to say this is the criteria you use.
And there's
Sometimes
gonna
you
be-
look at infrastructure, I know there's been some issues that our office has encountered about some subdivision of property off a road that on its best part is probably 10 feet wide. And it was 1-acre tract, 1-acre tract. This situation would have prevented that. They would have had to have those larger tracks. It would have decreased the amount of development on that 10-foot wide road. Maybe it's whether you have well water or not. Well, then again, you're still going to only punish this guy maybe out where there's not utilities available and saying, you got to stay at 5 because you don't have public water. So there's, you go to 5 acres, there's going to be somebody that kind of gets held, or you're just gonna look and say, well, let's just do A3 for that 1 acre and be done with it. I don't know the answer to that.
There will also be, just like they adopted in 1971, I think I remember, Jim, it's in several different places, maybe all of them, reference to a lot of record. If whatever we do now, if you got an A1, if you've got 9 acres and if you got 4 acres and your 4 acres now is A1 and it becomes a 5-acre minimum, well, he's I think Jim used the word non-conforming, but he's a lot of record, so you'd still be able to use your
Yeah, it's not-
lot of record property just like you could have before any changes, so.
It's not gonna prohibit that pre-existing, it's
Right.
gonna affect the future development, obviously.
I feel better knowing that we're not spot zoning if we did. Yeah, that
That's
was
right.
one of the questions that I had, about changing. the
We're
date.
creating new zoning, and I don't pretend to be the most knowledgeable, but when we have these new zoning districts, there's gonna be spot zoning to start with anyhow. It's just how we're creating these new areas of development or how we want it to develop.
Spot zone would be an M1 industrial zone
Yeah.
in A1 neighborhood, if we all know what we're talking about. That's a spot zone right there.
So A3 is completely new animal.
It is, yes, sir.
So how do we end up with A3s? Is it just through the rezoning process, or will there be a mapping process?
It would have to be through the rezoning process.
So everybody that's A1 now would automatically be A1 and A2.
They stay A1 and A2, because if we would've changed their zonings, we would've had to notify everybody, it'd been a big process. So everybody's current zoning remains. So the only way we can start getting A3s or any of these other new zonings is through the request.
And that was approved by Bob Bowman. We got all that clarified legally that it was something you could do. If you went the other way, it gets real complicated.
Yes.
I guess I would say I'm gonna take one example. I won't even put a name on it, but let's say somebody has a large tract, an out-of-state owner, developer or something that's currently zoned A1. And they decided they wanted to, go to R1. That brings that decision-making process here. Would that large 400-acre tract going from A1 to R1 be appropriate in that area? Brings the decision-making process here. Ultimately brings the decision-making process to our board, where you and us will be able to take input from the residents of a community and make a decision and stand on it firmly and legally that we can make that decision based on, if nothing else, based on community opposition. That's a big deal now that just kind of recently have been approved in the courts, we'll say. Decided in the courts, I guess would be a better word.
Just for some thought, is there any thoughts on the taking things from all the special exceptions and placing those in appropriate zones? Is there
I
any,
think that's great.
just trying to check off a few boxes. Any thoughts on the community facility district? Y'all kindly seen what those things do and list? I mean, do you feel that that's a good, process in how to handle that?
Do you like R2? I think R2's a big.
Yeah.
We have created a place for multifamily duplexes that we didn't have before. We've been criticized a lot for that sort of stuff, so now we have a zone for it, specifically for it. And it does require sewer, it does require water, minimum lot size and all that sort of stuff. So I thought that was a great addition to it.
You know, one of the curiosities I have, for example, under A1, page 4, talk about sponsored events. You know, we've had a lot of people that's come before us to want to put on rodeos, want to put in a music festival, want to put in a social event for large crowds, and you know, we've heard a little bit of different things. But when it actually comes to the true technical part of the logistics of that, there's 2 or 3 things that factor that. Traffic control, use of.
What page, Leon?
Page 4. I'm on E, subsection 1, 2, 3, and 4. So here's my question. The narrative says, sponsor of an event shall provide the following. Here's just one of the ideals. Typically, in the past, one of the questions that this commissioner people have talked to them was, they would say, have you reached out to the fire chief in that area have jurisdiction? Have you talked to the sheriff? Have you talked to the chief of police? Have you talked to whoever the relative agencies was in that area? So instead of having a traffic flow diagram, is there something that's we could bring into the equation of involving the road superintendent to say, is that road going to be sufficient to handle that traffic load? Is there a written approval from that? And then I go down to V on 5, a written narrative describing security and emergency services. Now, do we take that one step further and make sure that the area county chiefs, the city chiefs, whoever's having jurisdiction, or the sheriff, has an approved written security or emergency services plan? Does it help the codes office instead? Because I could right now write any narrative, but the gray part that I read out of that is, what part of it is going to be approved by the sheriff? What happens if the sheriff or the chief or the fire chiefs don't go along with their narrative? Do we help the codes office by saying that has to be approved by the agency?
Let me say this.
Just ideal.
We didn't change any of that. That's exactly what was in the Article 5, 1971 version. So I don't think we made a word change in that, did we, Jim?
We didn't make a word change, but what you're saying, is this the time to do it?
Well,
If it's
I'm taking,
necessary, I think so.
I'm taking examples from the people that's come before this commission and said, hey, I want to do this. And we've sat here for 30 minutes to an hour, and these were all the topics that brought up. And so if we're going to change section 5, my thought is little tweaks like that assist the codes office in, here's the approval process.
What do you want added to it?
Well, at traffic flow, like you said, it could be a matter of adding to that, ingress egress approval by the highway department. It's as simple as that. That way the highway department.
The rodeo, let's take the rodeo for example. The neighbors didn't want any part of the rodeo because the road would not take the livestock trailers to discharge the bulls. The neighbors didn't want the traffic because they're having to pull over to the edge of the road and passing. So just topic 3, I think Ms. Pam was one of the ones that was vocal on that. Just number 3 could go down to where it has to be approved by the road superintendent, otherwise the event can't happen. But I can't tell you on Article 5 here, written narrative describing security and emergency services. I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in 30 years that a fire chief doesn't agree with this homeowner, but there's nothing binding that helps that fire chief say, hey, you can't do this unless I approve it.
What should it say?
An approved narrative describing the security and emergency services by jurisdictional authority, something like that. I'll jump ship. I got several notes, and I'll just hand them to you after the meeting for the essence of time. Like, say, for example, page 5, number 5. Daycare centers serve up to 12 clients with no more than 2 employees.
Yes.
So do we put a narrative there that has to be a licensed daycare? Or have we thought about the process, 12 clients and 2 employees, what's the state narrative of the ratio? Do you have to have 1 employee to every 3 children? So they're not gonna be able to meet the standard if we don't even know what the state requirement is for daycare. So my curiosity is, do we say state approved, or do we just Google and check the narrative of if I'm gonna have 12 children there, how many employees do I have to have watching them? So I'm just curious if number 5 says
This meets
that.
the state. I can tell you this meets the
Okay.
state. But now, whether or not you add state approved on it, there was a lot of discussion about this very thing. And do that people that live at the house, that they count as the employees, or you got 2 people living there and then still have 2 more employees? So basically, I think if you say state approved, you kind of cover it all. I'm no issue with
Or
that.
licensed. Yeah. State license or approved. Just little bitty tweaks like that, I think, helps you enforce it.
But now, again, this is all 1971 stuff. In fact, a lot of this stuff has been amended, I don't know, Jim, dozens of times since 1971. It'll have a little note beside it saying, approved by county commission such and such a date, so.
But my question is, if this is all 1971 stuff and we're wanting to update everything, why ain't we doing it? Why are we rolling back to 1971? Let's make it right before
Well,
we do it.
that's what.
Well, we're not. I mean, we're not, if we're gonna vote on it tonight, we ain't accomplishing nothing.
Well-
We can't vote on it tonight.
Why not?
Look at the questions that's been asked, man. You
Well,
can't vote on this
that's-
tonight and
that's up
send
to
it to
you
the
all.
commission.
That's up to you all, I mean,
I mean, you just can't do that. I mean, this is the first time we've seen it, and you're wanting us to vote on it tonight with our questions and stuff?
that's
There ain't
your
no
all,
way we can.
that's
do
your
this.
all's call. I think Jim sent it out earlier, but this is why it's here at your workshop.
I
This is up to
understand
you all.
that, but
Jim
just
has
like
something-
everything Leon said or Pam said, you said, well, what do you want on it? Just like, we'll change that. Well, that ain't the way you do things.
Well, it sure is.
No,
Whatever
it
you all
ain't.
want
Not
to
to get
add.
us to vote on it tonight, no.
Well, you don't have to, but this is the time to say, you said
I
the first time you
understand,
said it.
I agree with that, but we can't push this through, is what I'm saying.
That's not a problem, but we have to know, we've just had this back from ETDD for not too long. They kept it nearly 6 months. My advice, if you send anything to ETDD, put a time limit on them or just don't send it one.
Well, it's a state, anything.
Well, I agree, but anyhow, they've sent it back. Jim and others, Jim and Adam, different ones have all looked at this now after ETD. I think Adam's dad's seen it all prior to this. So this is the time that we need to get everybody's input. We'll be taking it to our county commission workshop the next time to get input from them. Hopefully after tonight, they'll all get a copy of this with your all's suggestions as to what go with it. So I think Jim put it on your agenda tonight, just so if you were prepared to vote, it was already on the agenda. You're under no obligation to do anything. So we need to know what everybody's thoughts on everything is.
One last question, Jim, and then I'll pass to the next commissioner. Airbnbs, I think you've dealt with in the past. I think that it's gonna be something that in future years, we're gonna see more and more. I see it in some of the sections like, R2, different ones it's called, boarding houses and, I forget the other term. So when we have some of these agriculture purposes, like the sporting farm over here at the Breck Ellison place or different places that they're renting those rooms out, does it help you enforce, we'll call it boarding house or whatever the narrative is, but we know it's what today's society calls Airbnb. Is there something that you would like to place in A1, A2, A3, R1, R2 to help you regulatory wise to either restrict it or make it come before the commission to ask for approval?
That would be my question to you all. Do you all want to start putting restrictions on Airbnbs?
Let me jump in. You can't. The state of Tennessee has yet to give the local jurisdictions any authority. We can make them get a license and charge a fee for it and keep a record of where they are. You helped me, Bob sent us all this up out 2 or 3 times. We can give them the state, the current laws, noise ordinances, things like this. They have to comply with all the state laws. But as far as saying you can't do it, county government can't stop it.
I get phone calls about them. Do y'all allow Airbnbs?
They're
The
a
way I
problem.
answer those questions is, we do not regulate the length of leases of rental of your house to rent out to someone. What we do regulate is single-family dwelling, and we have a definition of family. The family is blood-related people. There's no number or 5 or fewer non-blood related. So if you're trying to rent a room out in your house and you've already got 5 kids, you're not gonna be able to do it. It keeps people with the lake houses, you know, I tell people, yeah, a family can come down there, a family of 4 or 5 come down there and rent that, but if you're gonna do spring break with a bunch of college students, 5 or fewer, that's what we can regulate, it's the definition of the family.
So let me reverse that question.
Yes, sir.
The narrative of the 1971 books references boarding houses,
Boarding houses, yes.
which I'm being told now by the commissioner that it's illegal, we can't necessarily regulate that. Do we need to delete that? out of the
Airbnb and the boarding house are 2 different things.
I think they're different.
I would love to eliminate the boarding house. That's left over from an era long since past, but it's highly defined in here what a boarding house is. It doesn't fit an Airbnb, so to speak.
Rooming and boarding houses have the same definition pretty much. It says a building and accessories thereto principally used, designed, and adapted to provide living accommodations for not more than 6 occupants having common cooking and dining facilities. So a boarding house, and I think they're allowed in the R1, and I'm not familiar enough to see if they've been put back in the R2.
They are R2.
They are in the R1 and the R2, so if a person had are they by special exception without me looking?
I don't recall.
I think-
But the
But that would
definition
be
you
like
read
a
to me,
bed and breakfast, in my opinion, would be a rooming and boarding house. Not an Airbnb, but a bed and breakfast. That's what I would consider that type of.
Because of the common space.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to open a bed and breakfast, they've got a sign out there, you know, whatever those things look like. So-and-so's bed and breakfast, that'd be a little bit different than renting a house on Airbnb, just my thoughts.
And that was all 71, the
It
70
is.
plus the boarding house. There's another what was it me and you talked about? What's the other besides boarding
cotton
house?
ginning was one of the things
Well-
that I'm sure Loudon County don't use it. So a lot of that language is
What was that?
cotton ginning and things of that
But there's
nature.
another residential thing that you had mentioned. There's 2 different things. There's boarding houses and, there's something else in there talking about.
I'd have to read back through.
I forget what it was. There's 2 really old-timey sounding names as far as the law.
But, you know, just the narrative of the clean up the language, some narratives say funeral parlors, some of the narratives say funeral homes. So that's just a technical of,
That
Go
would be
through the
great to change it, though. That's one of the keys, is try to make this thing uniform as you read it.
my overall opinion is, I feel we need it. I feel like it's something that, with today's society, with the way the county's changed, I think it's a good thing. I think we just need to make sure that everybody's uniformed in what's the best for you as a regulatory office and what's the best for us on the commission representing the citizens.
Absolutely.
I would like to see some cause and effect. What's gonna happen if we choose this? what's gonna happen if we choose that? What could happen?
What are your two, causes and effects that you're referring to?
Are we gonna end up with something like an explosion we see up in Dixie Lee right now?
No, not under the new Article 5, you're not.
Well, that's what I.
You're gonna say far less of it.
See that broken
Part
down.
of Article 5 is to prevent exactly what's happening in Hardin Valley, Farragut, West Knoxville, all up in there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as density, the one thing this does not do is it doesn't create any density. It actually reduces density.
Yes.
Every zoning district pretty much is a reduction of density.
Cause I see it
From
coming
minor
this
to
way.
very large.
It's gonna stop at the Loudon County line right now. That's really what's driving this and nothing else. That's really where you get your A1, 2, and 3. That's where the big difference there is the large lot protections. Like I was talking about the 400-acre lot. The guy won't do his grandkids, that's incidental to it. You're gonna hand the rezone off to the A3 to have 1 acre lots, where A2 to have a 2.5 acre lot, whatever, all day long. If the guy comes in here and I've got 400, I'm gonna rezone it to R1.
Well, then we gotta have a leg to stand on if he comes in and does, and wants, if somebody wants that, what I'm saying?
Which one?
If somebody's got a 400-acre farm and they wanted to change it to A3, the whole farm, you know,
Yeah.
in lieu of developing it,
Is that
But then
potential, you got
what-
400 homes there?
yeah.
Really? 1 acre lot.
And
But if
you
it goes to
know,
R1, it would be twice that many.
exactly, but, you know, the way this is written,
Will it
we
fit
don't
your-
have the leg to stand on to deny.
Does it fit the community it's in? That's your
Well,
leg to
and
stand on.
we always listen to that.
And that's what you've been doing for all of your years. You've been sitting here is making that decision based on what the circumstances of that particular request are. So it would be just the same as what y'all been doing forever, essentially. But any input y'all have, anything anybody's got, get it to Jim. Let's get it all. I mean, we got one good shot at this, and it's not a forever thing. If we don't get it all perfectly the first time, we can always continue as it's been amended 1,000 times since 1971. But please give Jim any input you got to make it stronger and to make it better. This is just the first, back from ETDD, input from county commission, input from planning commission, input from Jim, and anybody else that wants input. That's all of what this is right now. Let's make it as good as we can. Can we think of every single conceivable episode that might happen? I don't think any of us can do that, but we can make it as good as we possibly can.
So any suggestions, I mean, besides where we would wanna place these A3? Is there anything else in these two? Seem to be the hot topics. I know there's some minor stuff, and we need to address that, and I will take your notes and I will review those also. Is there any other thought processes on the sizes or anything of that nature that seem to be the?
I'll echo kind of what Pam was saying. I feel like there needs to be more public engagement in this, because even though we're not putting anybody in at A3, we're still potentially negatively impacting folks in A1 and A2 that need to know that. And other than a public notice in the newspaper, I'm not sure anybody knows about it. So maybe we can get the mayor involved in disseminating information about future workshops, something of that nature. I think there's still a lot of questions to be answered, so.
By all means, just give me the information, you know, so that we can look into it for sure. I mean, this is why we're here to discuss it. I just need to know which way we want to steer the ship, for lack of better words. Appreciate it.
Or just me.
Yeah, I think we'll get.
What?
5-minute break.
5-minute break?
We'll leave the cameras on.
Hey, Jim, do you have more copies
Do
of that
remember
Article
Cameron,
5?
all right.
I didn't get one in here. I can make one at work, I just don't, y'all have one.
Yeah, just work.
What I if I remember, I had Jeannie to email the most revised, where all the little typos and corrections have been made.
Wake him up.
We know, like, he needs somebody else. How you doing?
Help me, Daddy.
I did say 2.5.
I can just get, I just thought they had an extra one laying there, I can print one off and work, ain't no problem.
Email everybody out the most revised.
Cause I like it, I like you to do it.
This is a workshop.
BZA or planning commission?
Here because there's an exception.
That's a BZA, street meeting.
You met before. I've seen you in here. We talked about a piece of property over there on Lakewood. Yeah. It didn't work out. They told us they were gonna sell, they were gonna sell, they were gonna sell. I showed them everything they told me. We decided not to sell. And then
Second, that's nothing. But you wanna be able to get off paper to whatever.
Yes, yes. And we've done that. And we
So what do I need to do? If they approve it, or they say, okay, you just give me another set.
somebody comes and
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks for working.
says, well, no,
So you think I need to see both?
How did you handle it? What change size? What would be?
spot zoning, the community.
ALR's not small.
Well, yes, we use that right up there.
Hey, thanks for working.
Which one you want to convert it?
And to rezone to R1, community, and there. Yeah, and we denied based on the community.
Poles.
Yeah.
Now, that's where you get there.
We all.
Well, I just didn't know what the.
Well, legally.
I know they.
So, we get what I'm saying, I'm gonna convert it, make it look like a house, it's a special exception. You got a guy supposed to come here and do this, and so, I'm open to anything.
I mean, well, sure. In the meantime, you know,
Come up with a good plan, but so, he's an engineer, y'all got to figure it out.
you know, you gotta, you gotta down to water.
We haven't seen one of those tractors, I ain't gonna figure out how to get out.
Our highway, you've got 100 acres, well, acres, you have 20 acres, 20% acre. You know, something like that.
Think it through and come with a plan. Because I don't know a purpose. Yeah. Other than.
But I just think we need some rules and regulations for that to stand up. Because there's gonna be, there's gonna be
The way we account for everything. There's no possible way. Well, coming from the other way, we were at Mississippi. Jump in here, some people.
we got out that road, we started today, and we got from our house to Bradshaw Mall, and I went to school. Let's go around.
I'm gonna ask
Yeah, we
you a
got one.
question.
It's 5:30, so we will call the Loudon County Regional Planning Commission to order. Would you stand with me, please, and pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ron Bright,
Here?
Jim Brooks,
Here,
Todd Kennedy,
Here.
Pam McNew,
Here,
John Napier,
Here.
Leon Shields,
Here.
Mike Waller,
Here.
Jimmy Williams,
Here.
Keith Buckles.
Do I hear an approval of the minutes from the February 13th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Land agenda items. A, commercial site plan applicant, property owner, Skelly Properties, tax map 007, parcel 016.00, located 600 Watt Road, C2 General Commercial District, District 5, approximately 8 acres. Anybody from Skelly Properties here? Jim, what do you got a suggestion on this? We're in A and
This is
there's
the
no record.
commercial site plan that was on the agenda last month and was tabled, for Scully. We had approved, what was it, the special exception months ago. Everything, I believe, is in order with the site plan. He's just not here to present it. He's also on BZA tabled from last month as far as the, that road frontage.
we table it again. Or does that kill it, we table it?
Typically, I think, in this, with the site plan, you know, we just, most things you've got 60 days, but I think that subdivision plats, you know, site plans is something we added to planning commission to be added. If y'all wanna table it, we'll tell them they need to come here for the next meeting or.
I make a motion
just
we
deny
table
it.
Second.
Got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of tabling it, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. B, subdivision plat for 4 lots. Applicant property owner Ashley McBride, tax map 021, parcel 146.01, located 980 Phillips Road, A2 Rural Residential District, District 6, approximately 4.79 acres. Is Ashley McBride here, or a representative of her?
I'm Richard DeLay, I'm here representing Ashley McBride,
Okay.
surveyor on the property. Be glad to answer any questions you have. You all looked at the site, it's a steep site, we've had the lots tested with a soil scientist, so there is space on each lot for drain field. And we would ask that you approve it.
Jim, you want to say something?
Had, the fields reviewed the plat, everything's in order. I believe this one was also tabled from last month.
How you gonna access those lots, Richard?
Say again?
How you gonna access the lot, Richard? Straight up and down?
They're, the only place they can build is very close to the front, so they're probably gonna have to have retaining walls in the back of the lot, but they're gonna build out front setback lines. And then that leaves enough space in that area to get the drain field in, but you're right, the middle part of the lots are 30% that are steep.
Yeah.
There's one building space on the, I guess it's lot 4, the very back out on top of the hill, if they can figure out a way with walls and stuff to get a driveway up there, there's building space up there.
And my concern is
It's a
they're gonna be coming right back next month for variances because they can't get access to their lots or they can't find a building spot. This is in my district, and I've looked at them. They're steep and gonna be very difficult to build. I'm gonna have a hard time approving variances.
I guess my response to that would be, I know the owner's gonna build on one of the lots, and she's made up her mind to do that, she's figured out a way to do it. I'm assuming that there are probably other builders or people out there that won't live on a lot that size and have the privacy in the rear that are still capable of designing a house for a lot. It's really hard in East Tennessee not to be able to design a house or something. But I acknowledge it is very difficult.
If it's in order, I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We got a move and a second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Thank you.
C, commercial site plan applicants, construction design and management tax map 009, parcel 157.00, located 781 Highway 70 West, M1 General Industrial District, District 5, approximately 10.43 acres.
I'm Mark Matlock with Construction Design and Management, and we were here last month
Yep.
again on a variance request and so forth. And I'll take the advice from Commissioner Brooks and so forth. I'm gonna be very, very simple tonight. But this is a request that we looked at last month, and we're asking for approval now of just the site plan for the Wampus Farm Sausage project expansion.
The entrance into Highway 70 then. That's part of it too, isn't it?
Yes, sir, that is, yeah. And
But
that
this
is-
this doesn't address that road relocation yet, does it?
It does not, we're working with that, currently, as we work through the process. We had, some information to come, again, last week and this week, as we're working with the LCUB on some utility lines that have to be investigated and looked at there and what the cost of that's gonna be. So, all of that is in the works.
Jim, your thoughts?
They were approved for the variances, and I believe everything else is in order based on review. I believe most of this building's actually out into current asphalt and gravel anyhow. There's no earthwork to even be conducted on this that I know of.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
Got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. D, commercial site plan applicant JMB Investment Company, tax map 035, parcel 052.00 and 053.00, located Highway 321, G2 General Commercial District, District 3, approximately 1.25 acres. Sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, my name's Tim Dunaway. I'm here just to present this. It's, from what I understand, we have already got our septic permit on this lot. It's a tight lot, it's kind of irregularly shaped, but we managed to get the building on there and meet setbacks. The septic is approved. We've got TDEC and TDOT applications in progress. We don't have them back yet. I realize that would have to be conditioned, obviously. Other than that, I believe we're fine. Parking requirements, we have a variance meeting after this meeting to ask for a reduction in parking. So obviously, you would have to condition it, approve, you know, that the BZA would approve our variance we're requesting later.
Detention, Jim?
It has, on the other sheets, that's why I was asking Bill, it has detention to the left-hand side of the building shown on some storm drainage. That's correct, yes.
Little triangular shaped pond, about the same size as that little triangular shape there on the left, so.
Yes, sir.
I do have a truck turn drawing, if that interests anyone else also. Shows that we can bring the vehicle in, turn it on that. The heavy duty paving is dark there. Makes a swing in and backs up to the dock and gets back out on the road without, you know, obviously backing in off the highway or something crazy.
As he mentioned, they're requesting a variance, I think, on parking space numbers and size also,
Yes.
right? There's some size, I think we require a 200-foot space, and you're doing, what is it, 8 by 20s?
No, we're, actually the final plan, 10 by 20 obviously is 200. We're going for a 9 by 19, so we're just a foot each direction asking for.
Okay.
And 30 spaces.
30 spaces. So, and then the other note, Phil had made, of course, they'll need to submit a plat to combine the lots. That'll be in-house review, but there's a combination. It's actually sitting on 2 lots. Again, this approval will be pending him getting those variances, but I will say, you can see the layout of the lots and the configuration. They've taken up most of the property, either with their detention and storm drainage or the parking, and probably, for this site, laid it out the best they could.
Pretty small site. It's probably one of the smallest you worked on.
We tried to get some additional property from the neighbors and it was not, just didn't work out.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
One nay. E, subdivision plat for 3 lots, applicant property owner Aaron and Katie Baird, tax map 047, parcel 0611000, located Dry Valley Road, A2 Rural Residential District, District 4, approximately 19.54 acres.
I'm James Hare, I'll be representing Aaron and Katie Baird. Lots 1 and 2 are 5 acres, so we're just asking for approval on 3, 4, and 5. The smallest one is 3 acres. Each one has, 3 and 4 has 50 foot of red frontage, meets requirement for zoning.
Mr. Chairman, if the codes office don't have any conflict, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. F, rezone request from M1 to A1, applicant Marcelo Urias, property owner Mary Schindler, tax map 032, parcel 111.00, located Matlock Bend Road East, M1 General Industrial District, District 1, approximately 9 acres. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a contract on the property, I haven't purchased it yet, with Mrs. Mary Schindler. And the contingencies are financing, which I have cleared, and the rezoning. The desire for now is for us to put a manufactured home, and for me and my wife to live there. Somewhere in the woods, the heavily wooded property, so that's why the desire to have this change from M to 1. And also, I had a conversation with Mr. Jenkins, if I understood correctly, we are surrounded by A1, east and west of the property.
So the county portions in this map right here, if you look at parcel 112, right there, that's actually A1, I believe. It's already been rezoned. It was probably 8 months ago. And actually, a segment of this current property is A1. This did go to the city because it's in their growth boundary. They made a recommendation. He's surrounded by the city on the C2 and the M1 on the other side. And then as you can see, the parcels behind him are in the county, and they are all A1.
You think it's appropriate?
I think so, yes, sir.
You're wanting to build behind the storage areas, the storage units,
Across the road, across
on the
Matlock
other
Bend.
side of the road.
It's really near where the band of Matlock Bend is, closer to the campground rather than the storage unit.
If you get it approved, I'll be your neighbor.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay.
Appreciate it, thanks.
G, rezone request from A1 to R2, applicant Haley Martoni. I hope I got that halfway right. Property owner Karen Cookson of Martoni, tax map 049, parcel 169.00, located 386 Cook Drive, A2 Rural Residential District, District 1, approximately 2.6 acres.
Oh,
Mrs. Martoni,
yes.
what you got?
Oh, we're rezoning because we are gonna end up having it,
Put a house.
split, and we're gonna put a home on the other side. So that's what it's for.
I've been speaking with them. If you look to you can see the house on the upper side of the road. This other section of property is about 3/4 of an acre, if that's correct, okay? It's currently in its current zoning district. They cannot even subdivide that off. Their hope is to be able to subdivide the lower section to put a home on it. There are surrounding properties, as you can see, that are already zoned R1. And so by taking this to an R1 zoning, that will enable them to subdivide that sectioning off, and build on it. I mean, it is intersected by the road, which, you know, is another.
Mr. Chairman, due to the hardship, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Good.
Thank you.
H, bring to a vote on Article 5 of Loudon County zoning resolution from workshop. Anybody want to make a motion to table that or go with it now, or what's the feeling of the board?
I think there needs to be more input and more discussion on it before we vote on
That is your motion.
it. Yeah, it is a motion.
I second your motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of postponing, say aye.
Aye.
We are opposed, nay. We are postponed. 4, County Commission action on Planning Commission recommendations. Jim, anything?
I'm just trying to think of what I went to county commission for, to be honest with you. They approved it, whatever.
Anything from the codes department?
Nothing new to add.
Okay. Additional comments from the public? Update, whoa, yes.
I got a quick question.
Stand, please, and give your name.
Yes, sir. My name's Martin White. I live on Lakewood Drive, right around the corner from you, I think. There's an exception sign across the street from us.
Next meeting.
This meeting.
Next meeting.
After this meeting. Thank you.
We'll see you then. Update from the planning department.
Nothing new to add.
Do I have a move for this body to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I'll give it my all. Just watch Frankie.
She's got them out there.
Actually, Hannah just bringing me some yesterday to put my all.
Oh, really?
I just got some bringing
We
yesterday.
got some people in here, I don't know what they're.
See Miss Hannah.
See ya.
Just. We'll get that around March. Go up, we'll send that out to you. Okay, all right, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Don't mind. Here, I got all kinds. That's zoning, that's in zoning.
Perfect.
You can have it on my own. We ready to go?
Ready for you.
Call the Loudon County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order, and the roll call.
Ron Bryant,
Here?
Jim Brooks,
Here.
John Napier,
Here.
Leon Shields,
Here.
Mike Waller.
Here.
Anybody that's gonna speak in this meeting needs to stand up, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you may now give in the cause is now pending before the commission be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Everybody read the minutes?
Move to approve.
Perfect, second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Planned agenda items. Special exception to build ball fields for public school applicant Michael Guerin, property owner, Loudon County Board of Education. Tax map 15, parcel 137.00, located Simpson Road, R1 Suburban Residential District, District 2, approximately 2 acres.
Brian Pierce, I'm with Cope Architecture, Knoxville, Tennessee. We're the architect on the project. So this covers just the softball field portion that was not included on last month's baseball overall ask.
So everything's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Just the
to
part
clear
that was
up.
omitted last month.
It is, yes, sir.
I make a motion, we grant the exception.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. B, variance request for side yard setback for an existing accessory structure. Applicant property owner Ron Morton, tax map 021 parcel 056.00 located 2707 Lakeview Road. R1 Suburban Residential District, District 2, approximately 1.16 acres.
My name's Ron Morton, it's my wife Sandy, we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of questions, Ms. Morton. I'd like for, of course, I've dealt with you with the city of Lenore City. You've come before the planning office and requested some lot line changes since you're due to the urban growth boundary in that area.
Yes, sir.
I'm under the impression we're in the signature phase, is that correct?
I have a copy here, we're just waiting on
Okay.
our city to get signatures.
Some of my questions, we've had a lot of conversations as commissioners and some of the county commissioners has reached out to us in this setting. I understand there's various surveys, and I'm under the impression that some of those surveys say different things. So my question to you is, Ms. Morton, do the surveys show that you're over the line and you're in violation of the property owner's property, or give me a little bit of explanation on that?
We have 3 surveys. The property was originally subdivided back in the 90s by my cousin Judy, and we have that survey. We also have the more recent survey that shows the buildings and where they sit in relation to the line. Those have been recorded at the Register of Deeds office showing that there is no encroachment. And additionally, we have a copy of the adjoining landowner's warranty deed that show that the cord call out on that particular line, all 3 match. They all say the same thing, same monuments across all 3 surveys. So I feel certain that there's no discrepancy between the surveys, and I have all those here if anyone would like to see a copy.
Because some of my comments in the past, I feel like that if you're in violation of the property line, that we're voting on something that should be a civil matter in court. If you're not violating that property line, I feel like that the setbacks could be requested by us, and that's something that our board could consider. So you're telling me lawfully you are not in violation across the property line?
I'm telling you that we've done everything, our due diligence, we've registered them with the Property Deeds Office, we've looked at their warranty deeds, we've looked at the original survey, and they all 3 say the same thing. We're not in violation.
So I've looked at it, and of course I spoke with you. Tell me the difference, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind me referencing item C here. Tell me the difference with the 2 different requests. Why 2?
Originally, there were 2 lots, there were 3 lots that I owned, and when we came there, our family's been on that property since 1912, so we're the 5th generation to be there. We've been there about 10 years, and so when we came there, we never treated it like 3 different parcels. We just always treated it like 1 parcel. So I set out to build some buildings to put my equipment in and keep my stuff dry, my cars, and just like anybody would. And so I was, in my mind, building barns, and so I didn't pull a permit. So that tripped me up on the setback violation. I apologize for that. And now I know that I should have done that, but I didn't. And so now I'm just trying to clean it all up. We've removed the lot line on the back of lot 1, which makes that all one big lot, which puts all the barns on the same property. So it's my understanding through Mr. Jenkins that takes care of having accessory structure on a lot without a principal structure, because at the time the farmhouse had sat by itself on its individual lot, and then the barns I built were back on what is lot 3, but now that's all going to become lot 1, so that fixes that.
Is that correct, Jim?
So combining the lots does take care of the accessory buildings without a principal, yes, sir.
Okay, so the only thing he's in violation of now is the variances and the building permit that he would require to build a structure or a house or whatever it was he was wanting to do.
Yes.
Those lots have been combined.
I've not seen it.
My impression, I did look the drawing in Beth's office, and she said that she was pending final signatures, because we signed it as LCUB, not as the planning commission, but we signed it. And have you talked to her to see if everything was in order?
No, I've not spoke to her in regards to combination of lots. But he's correct, combining the lots would alleviate the violation of accessory buildings without the principal structure.
And do you think that, with what Mr. Morton said, do you think that's correct? He's not across the property line?
I have seen surveys that show it crossing. I have seen surveys that he has presented that show it 6 inches off the property line on his property, not encroaching. I've seen 2 different surveys. Ultimately, if there's a discrepancy in surveys, it becomes a civil matter between property owners.
Of course, I voiced
What this board
that.
will eventually deal with is being 6 inches off the property line in violation of setbacks.
Of course, I voiced that with some commissioners before in the conversations about that I worried about if we made a vote and Mr. Morton was across the property line, it was not a planning commission issue, it'd be a civil matter through the court system. So,
I would just add to maybe shed a little light on how we got here, but initially, we had a gutter and some overhang that overextended beyond the property line. That's what was shown on the original that was presented to us. We at that time did not know whether it was foundation or what it was, but when we had our surveyor come out and shoot the line, he said, what you've got is overhang and gutter. So since then, to rectify the situation, we took the overhangs off the building, put the gutter back on it, which the foundation was always on our side of the line. It was the overhang and gutter that was encroaching, if anything. Seems to be some different opinions of surveyors about what is an encroachment. Is it foundation or is it overhang? But needless to say, we have rectified that situation and we have nothing overextending, encroaching onto the adjoining landowner at this time.
and Mr. Morton, I'm sure you understand that regardless of what this commission votes here, does not change any kind of civil matter. It doesn't overrule the court system. Mr. Chairman, I know that this has kind of been a chaotic case. I know there's a lot of documents. I've looked at a lot of documents. The city's going through the process of looking at documents. If he is truly lawfully, yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, you may have something there.
Yeah, I was gonna see if anybody in the audience had anything. Go ahead, ma'am. Come up here and state your name. Tell us what you got. Come up here to the front and tell us what you got.
My name's Catherine Massaro, and I, along with my husband and parents, own the property next to the Mortons. Almost 3 years ago, we purchased the property so that we could build a house for our family and to take care of my parents as they're getting older. We have not been able to do so because of the encroachments. We have tried, and I'm tearful because it's, I'm not coming at you guys in an ugly way, but this is a huge issue for us that has to be taken care of. We've had many conversations about this for the past 3 years, and it has not been rectified. We have surveys that show that he's over the line. He even sent us a survey proposing to buy a strip of our property showing the foundation encroaching on the property. So our request is that the county would deny the variance so that this would not become a civil matter.
Ma'am, it is a civil matter. What you done said, you got a civil matter. It's not our problem.
Have you had that property surveyed, your people?
Yes.
Does it show him over your on your survey? Does it show
On
him
our
over?
survey, it shows an encroachment of 2 of his accessory structures. And then he presented us with another surveyed proposal showing that the foundation of one structure was over the line and the overhang, as well as the second structure encroaching the property line. So we have not been able to get the insurance we need or build or do anything that we need to do.
Ms. Morton?
May I speak? Everybody else is speaking. I'm sorry, this has just been blown out of proportion completely. We are not encroaching. We've never been encroaching. I don't know where the survey came from that said we were encroaching. They're 90 acres away from us, and you're not going to, I mean, it's crazy that you wouldn't give us 5 feet on our side of our property. It doesn't make any sense, guys. You drive down Martell Road and it's a mess. There's Blythe houses on, that's been burned, it's not taken down. We've got this beautiful building on our property, and they're crying over 90 acres away. We've got our dream home too. We're raising 2 grandchildren that we've had since May. You know, we're in the same boat as they are. We're trying to raise our families peacefully. It's gotten way out of hand. Van Shaver, where's Van? He sold them the property. Nobody knows whether they even knew that there was a so-called encroachment on the property when Van sold it to them. It's all out of proportion. It's out of, it's craziness.
Just say that I had infinite room, I mean, they bought a piece of property that had an alleged encroachment on it, wasn't disclosed to them. I would've been upset right out of the gate. We tried to start, the easiest thing to do was to buy property. We couldn't come to terms because of how we started off like this. You know, we're raising our family there, we wanna be good neighbors, our families have been there, and I've done all I know to do to clean up any doubt whatsoever. I've hired a professional surveyor, he's come out and shot the lines. The line is a straight line, we're not shooting curved lines. The monuments were found, each corner pin was located, and it's a straight line. The buildings are not on their property. Here is the buildings that have been filed with the Register of Deeds office with stamp survey and filed on both buildings showing that there is no encroachment. I don't know what else to do. I mean, I've done all I know to do to clean it up. And for whatever reason, they're convinced that they are. But they're not here with a survey showing a survey. We had asked for their survey, but we were told that they couldn't disclose it. So, you know, had to do our due diligence because of their lack of providing a survey to show us that we were. So we spent $7,000, $8,000 trying to clean this up. And I've done all the things I know to do to clean it up. And it's all right here and it's registered up there in the office. I don't know what else to do. They've got a survey that's up there that's unrecorded. Why do you not record your survey? If you feel like that's the Holy Grail, then record it. It's not recorded, mine is.
Let me ask the lady here a question. I apologize, I don't remember your last name.
Sorry, as I like to cry.
So, do you have a survey registered at the county property assessor's office?
And it was done about 3 years ago.
Okay, and it's
I
that
know
survey,
Mr. Jenkins has copies, I believe.
I've seen copies.
and does that survey show that Mr. Morton or Mrs. Morton is over the property line?
Yes, sir.
Over the eaves, the gutters, whatever the appurtenances are, it shows it's over.
It shows that.
Because here's where I'm leading to. If it does, it shows this is a civil matter and this commission cannot vote on it.
Sure, yes, sir. It does show there's an encroachment. It doesn't specify.
On both buildings.
Yes, sir.
I have a copy of outbreak of that, I'm happy to share it with you, but it doesn't specify foundation, overhangs, it doesn't do anything.
It does not.
I also have a copy that Mike Campbell made up there of their survey, and across the top of it, it says unrecorded. So their survey is not recorded with the county, and there's both of those documents.
But that gets back in what Leon's saying. I mean, we're hearing both sides of your argument, and we're not a court. It's
Sure.
gonna have to go to civil court.
Yeah.
We can't do anything until civil court decides where the property line is. And that's just the bottom line.
In order for that to happen, then someone's gotta sue somebody, so that's where we are.
That's your office.
I mean, I think that you guys should spend some time and look at the surveys and clearly understand it. Because this is not a real, it's a straight line, Catherine.
It is, yes.
Right, and we're not over it. We fixed it when we took the overhangs.
Like I said, this is a civil court matter. We can't, in my opinion, now, tell me if I'm wrong, boys, we can't do nothing in something like this when they're arguing.
My personal opinion, we hear variance requests routinely. and routinely we approve or deny the said request depending on what each scenario is. But we have had situations in the past that we have had items brought before the board that there was a property line dispute, and we all know there was a surveyor in here. They can kind of they can agree that those are civil matters. So I can see the variance request by you is no different than anyone else in this room may be asking for a variance request. But if there's a property line dispute, I feel like it's a civil matter. Now, some of the other people may not agree with me, but I feel like it is. Yes, ma'am.
We have three proof,
Ma'am,
Show
ma'am,
them, show them.
ma'am, you've got 3. She says she's got 1.
She doesn't
It's a
have
civil,
hers.
it's a civil
She's been
matter.
misinformed from the
Anybody got a
get-go.
motion?
My opinion is if we table it, both parties bring their documents to the next meeting, and the vote will be determined at the next meeting.
I have that copy.
You please submit everything to Jim Jenkins, and my motion will be to table it 30 days.
Let me ask you this, what if at that next meeting, that the 2 surveys come in here and they still are off?
That's what I'm saying.
If the surveys show,
Then it's a civil matter?
well, if the survey shows she's across the property line, it's civil. If the survey does not show and it's been rectified and being cleaned up, like I'm under the impression from the documents I've read at the city plat does not say that it's in violation of the property. And their signature's going on that survey and that plat as we speak, because I've signed it. There's no property discrepancy on that plat. And so I feel like that if that's the case, and the plat that's at the city being signed now by all the different parties, the variance request can be voted on.
So your motion is to table.
Only pending the documents from the other side. The documents I've seen, the Morton family is not across the line. But now, I think it's willing and just that we provide these people, that's the neighbors, ample time to bring their documents.
Well, if they do, the problem is that we're still not gonna be able to determine if it's right or not.
That's
They
what
need
I'm-
to get the 2 surveyors out there in the field, get them in the ground, and have them work out a boundary line agreement, that this is where it is. Cause surveyors,
I think the only
Survey's
thing I've
different.
got with that, with tabling it 30 days, we're gonna come back in 30 days and we're gonna be in the same boat we're at tonight.
Well, I feel like the lady brings up that her insurance company, and I apologize for wasting time here, but I feel like she brings up an issue that she can't get this and it's detrimental to their property. But the problem is our vote tonight's not gonna help or hurt that if you're still saying there's a property line dispute. That's a civil thing.
I have not seen the latest survey, so, it is possible that Mr. Morton fixed the encroachments.
We said we did, so we did.
So
I can say-
I can't speak to that.
I can say that I have signed a plat in the city of Lenore City's office that does not show a property line dispute. So, I mean,
We got a motion to table it for 30 days.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
right,
Opposed likewise.
Mr. Chairman, I'm making the same motion on number C.
Okay. Got a motion on C to table it for 30 days.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
right.
Opposed likewise.
Mr. Chairman, item D is a variance for the Scully site plan. I don't know if anyone's here at this time to represent it.
Move table.
Got a motion to table?
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, E, we good on that, Jim?
E is the variance for the dollar store
Okay.
parking space size and number.
Okay, variance request for 3 parking spaces in lieu of the required 43 spaces, also requesting variance from 200 square foot to 162 square foot for parking place. Applicant JMB Investment Tax Map 035 parcel 052.00 and 035.00 located Highway 321 C2 General Commercial District, District 3, approximately 1.25 acres.
Tim Dunaway again, and one thing I do want to point out real quick before I forget, that 162, and we're doing 9 by 19s, which is 171, not that it makes a big difference, but
That's what I was figuring, you said 9 by 19.
yeah, and that's what the plan, all of them are 9 by 19s, except the ones against the main building, which those are 10 by 20. That's,
Okay.
we could fit them in our client preferred.
Is that a problem, Jim?
I don't know that it's gonna be an issue. Like I said, they've done about as well as they can with the layout and the size of the site.
My problem is, I mean, the reduction is 30% of the required parking spaces. I mean, why do we have the requirement if we're gonna reduce it by 30%? I can understand it if it was only 2, 3, 4 spaces, but it's how many?
13.
13.
I've
To me, that's
requested a
an
letter
issue.
from our client, not that that bears on the regulations, but they historically, and of course, a retail client, they want all the parking spaces they can possibly get, because they want to have a big parking lot, but they'll write letters supporting that 30 spaces on that square footage, that size model store, that 10,000 square footer, is more than adequate. I don't have the letter in hand yet, but it's on its way to us, but I've got one, we're doing one next county over that's got 27 spaces for that same size store, and Dollar General supported that. That doesn't mean anything from your all side of the table, I realize, just that you know that they're satisfied with it serving their customers, which they're very particular about, so it's, I feel like it's accurate that they say that 30 spaces supports the size store. That $1 will get you a cup of coffee, but it's proved out too, we've done it dozens of times in other jurisdictions. So.
Anybody in the audience got anything? Are y'all fine?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance. I've never passed one at the dollar store yet that had more than 30 cars out front of it. Maybe this will do the same.
If it gets full, they can build another in about a half mile down the road.
We're looking at property, I'm just gonna say.
Got a motion to approve, got a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed likewise.
Nay.
Good. Okay, F, variance request for 5-foot rear setback to construct a new home on property. Applicant Jason Daskus, tax map 010F, parcel 082.00, located 180 Hatteras Circle, R1 Suburban Residential District, District 5, approximately 1 acre. What you got?
I'm Walt Robinson, representing Heritage Homes. We've got a corner lot here that is reflected with, in my opinion, 2 fronts. HOA requires 2-story home to have 2,400 square feet. We've been having a devil of a time trying to get a footprint to go inside this building envelope. So we've requested a 5-foot variance at the right rear corner. The HOA has approved our blueprints on this lot. If you gentlemen let us go on this variance. I've got a site plan here drawn, probably be easier to look at, if y'all like to look at it.
There's a copy of it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is it a 5-foot variance or a 15-foot variance? I mean, the rear's a 30-foot setback, it says, or
Well,
25.
we're asking for
I'm
5.
looking here, hang on.
Where's this at? Where's it at?
It's in Rockingham subdivision.
It's up off Highway
Highway
70.
70.
Oh, okay.
Behind
Right
the
past Creekwood.
SPP building, the new building. Short of building a 3-story home, I'm not sure what we can do to fit inside this building envelope.
Well, the drawing says a 10-foot setback on the rear, right? Or am I
Yes,
looking
sir,
at it wrong?
but the right rear of the structures, outside of the dotted line, the build line there. So the front of the house is facing Cheyenne, a front entry, right-hand garage. So if you're looking at it from Cheyenne, that right rear corner is encroaching on the rear.
Now, is that counting the deck? Is
No,
that,
sir. No, sir. That deck will not have a roof over it, so I think
It needs to be included.
it's gotta fall inside that build
The
line.
attached decks would,
Okay.
yeah. On-grade patio wouldn't, but,
The wood,
the wooden attached deck.
okay. We'll have to move that outside that build line into the envelope of the lot then.
or move it to the center of the house?
Anybody here in opposition? Your thoughts, Jim?
So when I look at it, like he said, you've got two front yards, you've got a unique lot shape dictating these setbacks on that lot. We don't enforce HOA, but that's kind of what's got him by doing this. If I'm not mistaken, we have another house in that subdivision, it may be pretty close adjacent to it, that's received some rear setback variances also. So he does have some lot size, some issues that are causing this variance to be requested.
It is almost a 3-sided lot.
Is it showing us you're 15 foot to even your deck, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's probably a 25-foot rear yard setback, it is. So
Right.
that would be, he would need a 10-foot variance on that
You
rear yard.
you want to do the deck just like it is?
Do the deck, do the variance for the, structure and the deck. I would just give him the variance to the most that they needed, if you're going to, of 10 feet.
But we've agreed with the HOA not to put a roof over it. It'll only be a.
I'd put a roof over it.
Well, I think with the uniqueness of the lot and their willingness to cooperate with the HOA, I would recommend approving the variance.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
Do you want that 10 or 5?
10, I'd go ahead and do the 10.
10 will get the deck, right?
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. You're good.
Thank you.
Build a roof on it. Just to make them mad. Let's see. G, variance request to build a garage without primary dwelling. Applicant property owner Jason Brock, tax map 032, parcel 107.00, located Lakewood Drive, A1 RE Agriculture Forestry District, District 1, approximately 5.66 acres.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Jason Brock. This is my son, Jackson Brock. He's 17 years old, he's a senior at Lenore City High School, and has already enlisted in the Tennessee Air National Guard and will be leaving for basic military training and technical training for a period of approximately a year after he graduates. Ultimately, our goal is to build a house for Jackson, build himself a house on that property. I'm going to give the property to Jackson when he turns 18 and comes back. I may have got my cart before my horse. We also want to build a garage. It's a metal building garage, approximately 28 by 36 on that property to store Jackson's possessions, his vehicle and fishing boat and stuff down while he's gone to basic training. And didn't realize when we had it, we've owned that property for 3 years now, and didn't realize it was restricted that we couldn't have a garage prior to having a dwelling on the property.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question. Mr. Brock, typically in these requests, a person would pull a building permit within a period of time after that, just to show just cause that's gonna build the primary dwelling. Do you have any time frame that you'd pull that building permit?
It'll probably be at least a year. He won't be back from, oh, I'm sorry, son, let me speak for you there.
No, but within the year from now.
So you think if we approve this and just say that you'd need to come back to us by April of next year and pull a building permit with Mr. Jenkins's office, you think that would be okay?
Yes, sir, that would be acceptable.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve with those said provisions.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a
This
second.
gentleman here, I think he's one of my neighbors.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Question.
Yeah, well, the sign was out on the street and we didn't know what it was all about. They already have a building there, a garage of some nature, with cars in it that I've seen. So I don't know how that got put there. I'm not against them building a residence over there. We have a very fine residence right across the street on 3 acres on the water. And we just want to maintain our property values. That's the only reason for being here. So, that's why I'm here. I'm not opposed to them doing what they want to do, but I would like to see them, have a house there and not just a shop or a garage or a place to do automotive repairs. We didn't know what it was. All we saw was a sign there, and somebody said, well, it's going to be an automotive garage there. And being in a residential area, that's just not what most people want.
And that's why we usually follow up with a time period for the building permit, just to protect the interest of the local
Well,
land.
that's fine, they're gonna, put a nice residence there, I have no problem with that. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
My motion stands, sir.
Have a motion,
Second.
second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Good.
Thank you.
H, variance request for a 12-foot front yard setback for existing dwelling that breaks the front plane of the house. Applicant property owner Kim Clevenger and Jonathan Brewster, tax map 017H, parcel 052.00, located 215 Whitney Drive, R1 Suburban Residential District, District 6, approximately 0.54 acres. Tell us what you got.
I'm Jonathan, this is my fiance Kim, so we are in the process of building a garage, and during this process, we did not know that we couldn't break the front of the house, so it's roughly 11'7" in front of the house. In that subdivision, and with that being said, coming up the subdivision, the very first house, 111, Oakwood Estates Drive has a garage about the same size, about 30 feet from the curb, which ours is 92.5 feet. And going around the curve there's another garage that breaks the front of the home that is closer to the house as well. Yeah, I've got pictures all of it.
This come to me as a complaint. They have an active building permit for this garage, so they're not building in violation of permits. What's happened is when inspectors went out, he's not paid attention that it was set forward of the house. But I actually went out on site after the complaint, and where they showed on their site plan, of course, to issue the permit, it showed it going to the right-hand side behind the garage. When you go on that site, there's no way for them to build that. Let me back up. There's a steep slope behind that house that make it very difficult to build behind that house with this garage. And to the left of the home, behind where this garage is being constructed, is actually where their field lines and septic tank are. I think they've had to do a repair on that even for the garage. So really, the law has special land features that basically say if you're gonna be able to add, even build a detached garage, this is about the only location is to slide it forward of the house.
It makes the setbacks off the side.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's roughly 6'9" off the fence line and 43'10" off the back of the property line. It's just, when Jack Hill come out to do the septic inspection, he told us that'd be the best place, and even when we dug for the footings, we hit a field line that was not on the map. That set us back about $10,000, because we had to kill that field line and extend the front yard 100 feet, so.
Anybody in the audience got anything? Anybody got a
So
record?
you've just had the one complaint, Jim?
Yes, sir.
So this is a hardship, is what, how you look
I
at it?
mean, truly, I wish that we would have caught it during inspection previous, but yeah, it actually does have some topographical hardships. It really does. I mean, it's a steep sloping lot behind the house. There's not a whole lot of area. And then you have septic on the other end where it's a little bit flatter.
I'd make a motion that they've acted in good faith, and especially with getting a building permit, and they have, with the topographical problems they have, that we should approve this request.
And what you're making the motion to
approve.
To approve. I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. I, variance request to build a garage without primary dwelling, applicant Jimmy Glenn, tax map 084, parcel 069.02, located McGee Road, A2, Agricultural Forestry District, District 3, approximately 4.4 acres.
Okay.
Tell us what you got.
I'm gonna put a garage in, move in my parents, and my house is built.
Jim, you looked at it?
I have. It's essentially, as I understand, and I spoke to somebody about this, I believe they're waiting, their house is being sold, right?
So, yeah.
You need a place to put your stuff, but you need to go ahead and get the garage built prior to getting started on the house. Because they'll be able to live in the RV for a year once they get
Now,
a building permit for the house.
He don't have to have a special exception to do that, right?
No more. Once he
Right,
gets a
that's what
building
I
permit
thought.
for his house, he won't have to see us about
And
the
you're
camper.
building the garage behind where you're gonna
Well,
build
say
the
my-
house, right?
My garage will be up to the side of the house because I can't build next to the garage or behind it because it's steep. I've already got 8 foot of grade I gotta put in to bring it up.
And you heard our comments previously as far as the other request. You plan to have a house started building under construction within a
As
year.
soon as the contractors get here, we're gonna get the permits and do what we gotta do, but
Now, will he have to have a special exception for his house, Jim? Or how's that work?
No, I mean, as long as he meets setback with his house, he'll be fine, and even the garage, this is an A2 property, he's got 4 acres. He can actually set in the front yard as long as he meets the setbacks with the garage, so
Okay.
the only thing he needs to do is start his garage before he can get a building permit for his house.
okay, now, can I get the building permit for the garage now, or?
If they approve me to issue one without.
Anybody in the audience got anything? Y'all got anything?
Give him a time to begin
He's
that
got 12
construction.
months.
12 months.
I'd make a motion to approve with a 12-month timeframe.
I'll second your motion.
Got a motion in a second. All in favor, say aye. You just gotta get your building permit for the house.
Get it tomorrow.
I know for the house within 12 months.
Okay.
And the building, yeah. It's
I
coming
get
in
the
tomorrow.
building. Thank y'all.
J, special exception to build storage unit, applicant Chris Rogers, property owner Gerald Cole, tax map 033K, parcel 001.01 through 006.00, located Lee Highway, C2, General Commercial District, District 1. Where you building?
Oh, we're gonna have, open storage, it's gonna be open storage for, campers, RVs, equipment, boats. We decided not to do any, enclosed storage units. It'll be all open on a gravel lot, the footprint will be less than 1 acre. I've gone through, the Land Development Solutions and, we've met with TDEC and got a plan together to do, a footprint on that would just be gravel, and a slope.
It's right across the old Coles Drive-In.
Yes, sir, it is.
Mr. Chairman, I think this property meets the same thing that's across the street from it, but I do have a question for Jenkins. Didn't we already approve this?
We approved the rezoning, we did approve the rezoning, and it was rezoned with the intent of it being,
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second the motion.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. You got anything else? You got anything, Jim?
no, sir.
Your motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. We adjourn. You know what's funny, you better say aye.
Most of those left anyway.
What do you want, Jim? You did Miss Mike to me?
I just needed to make sure you have, you have to sign these.
Oh,
This
okay.
is the minutes.
You have
Right.
comments and stuff, you can get to me so here that I can look at.
Yeah, what I'll probably have to do is,
Today is the 12th.
it's just my head thinking, I kind of give you.
That's what my wife said, now you
Let's say, for
remember.
example, I just recommend, do we want to use this book to define on a double front, what we would consider the front, so to eliminate future meetings